Hello, welcome back. As I'm looking into today's news in the stock market, I'm seeing that AMC actually bought a stake in gold and silver miner Hycroft. And I wanted to talk about it and also examine the company as a whole. It seems to be an interesting company after the massive decline that it had and the massive increase because of becoming sort of like a meme among traders. And it had a little bit of a squeeze at some point. Now it has really dropped massively in the last few months or so. But the fact that they are buying this company here is very, very interesting, and I wanted to examine it, as well as the AMC itself, as I mentioned. So you will see here that the CEO, Adam Aron, has announced that the movie theater chain has been purchasing a stake in gold and silver miner Hycroft, and it's actually a 22% stake, which is very, very high, a very, very large stake here. And it's interesting that they mentioned that this is a strategic move for them. Now, I don't know how much of a strategic move it is for a theater to actually buy gold. I'm assuming that they are potentially thinking that there's going to be some depression going on and all these commodities are going to be rising tremendously. I don't see what else would be making sense here. Now, if you're wondering for yourself if it's worthwhile to get some stake in Hycroft mining, I will actually make a separate video, but there is something that I noticed here about Hycroft, that they have filed for bankruptcy protection back in 2015 so that they could restructure its debt. And that means that when this happened, current investors lost their shares. So that's not a good thing. Whenever a company does that to investors, I don't like it at all, and I hate potentially owning a company that has been in bankruptcy before, because I know that they can do it again. So this is something that I would potentially avoid just because of that. But it's worthwhile noticing, what has happened, what has been happening in the markets, and the move that AMC has been making lately. So let's take a look at the company itself, AMC. And you will see what I told you about earlier. The company was at some point at $71 and had a steep decline over here, losing a lot of its value. And you will see that it has a 20% short interest, which may have it as a prime target for a short squeeze potentially, of course. Let's see if it's actually down or higher. It's actually about the same levels. It used to be even higher over here. And the outstanding shares of the company have been increasing here. So obviously the company has been taking advantage of the increasing price over in this 2021 to 2022, and they have been issuing more shares and massively diluting investors. Look at that. This is 5 times as many. That's insane. That alone would be a massive red a massive red sign for me, a massive stop from purchasing AMC right now. They are severely diluting investors. So people who purchased here, they got massively diluted, or here even here is actually even worse. They got massively diluted, and that's not good to see. So the income statement of the company is the next thing that I'm going to be examining here. Let's take a look. And of course, we're going to take it to the last 5 years or so. It makes more sense. And the company has had revenues that have been all over the place. Now, after exiting the pandemic, it looks like they are starting to do better, so that's a good sign over here. And the net income of the company is still in the negative, and actually massively in the negative. There was 2020 where they lost a lot of money, and I assume this is why they started issuing shares in the meantime, because they can make some money back out of this insane loss over here. And the last 12 months still losing money, but not as many at least. So over here, you will see that the total assets of the company are sitting at 10.8 billion over here. They're actually down from 2019. And the total liabilities of the company at 12 billion, 12.6, which is more than the total assets. So that's something to note, because that means that the total equity is actually in the negative. The company has negative equity, and that's a really bad sign for a company that's potentially pointing to a company that has severe troubles with money and could be a bankruptcy target in the future. So that's a big problem. And the cash flow of the company seems to be, the cash from operations seems to be negative here, as you would expect. And again, even as we are exiting the pandemic, it's still in the negative. And the cash from investing, not much investing going on, as you could guess over here. And they did issue common stock, as we said, And it's surprising that they used a lot of their money actually to purchase a stake in this mining company when they are not really making money from their operations. So that's a little bit concerning. And the free cash flow of the company is in the negative as well. So again, you will see that it used to be negative, but now it's severely in the negative. So that's a bad sign. The multiples of the company are relatively okay, apart from the EV to sales. It's kind of high. The profitability is in the negative. Oh, the return on equity is actually positive over here. That's interesting, because that actually counts debt as well. And so this number is very high and probably deserves some investigation on why that is so high. But the solvency over here is negative 600 just because they have negative equity, of course. A lot of debt and negative equity is a fantastically bad sign, as you can understand, with the Altman Z-score being like out of charts really. So yeah, that's a very bad sign here. So let's take a look at the stock evaluation tool for AMC. Sitting at $14 and having a revenue that is all over the place, we could go. This was like 77% down in 2020 really, but I don't expect that to continue. We could still go for something like maybe 20, 30 and 40, and that is actually very, very confident, and it's based off of this year for the most part, because I think that as we're exiting the pandemic, the potential revenue for the cinemas will keep going higher, so I don't expect it to be that low, to tell you the truth. The net income though is in the negative because the company has been losing money pretty much every year. So look at that. So the net income margin, when you compare it to revenues, is in the negative, and that's a very, very bad sign, which I hate to see. It's actually the worst thing that I have seen so far. But I'm gonna go. Let's go for, let's just say 3, 5, and 7, which is again confident, very, very confident based on what we're seeing here. But I have to give it a little bit of a margin here, because otherwise it's gonna give me zeros if there's no margins. Free cash flow margin, we can go maybe it has been negative as well, but I'll still go, let's say 15, 20 and 25, and 13 is my, actually I'm gonna go 15 here because we have much more risk. And I have also been very, very confident in these calculations here and projections, so I want to at least be making more money if I'm to take those. Now remember, these were very, very confident already, so I wouldn't normally go with this. I would go with lower than this. But again, if I go too low, I'm gonna be getting zeros, and so I kind of want to avoid that and be a little bit more optimistic. So calculate, and we're still getting very low values here, and our high one is at $4.6, which I wouldn't take. I would barely take this one, to tell you the truth. And even then, I may actually be a little bit too optimistic if I do that. So this is what's going on with AMC right now. Is a very, very problematic company, which could potentially have troubles with staying solvent and not bankrupting. If I were holding this kind of stock, I would be very, very scared. But for a trade, I understand it. It's an interesting stock to trade, both in the upside and downside. But as a long-term investor, this is a no-go for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and take a look at this video that I made earlier about Alibaba, which is up 24% right now in Hong Kong. Very interesting. And thank you for watching this one. Bye bye.